It is 7:32. Um, how is everybody doing? Let's go around the room and talk about our holidays. Did everybody have good holidays? Uh, I just got back from 3 weeks vacation, and literally didn't log into my email for 3 weeks until late last night when there were 235 different emails for me to sort through, but then quickly got it down to 125 that I actually had to read when you take out things like Google Calendar sending you daily updates and other things. And then I got through all of those by lunch. I didn't deal with them all by lunch. I just got through them all by lunch, and sorted them. But yeah, I had a good holiday. Didn't do anything here in Ontario. We went into lockdown on Boxing Day, but that didn't really change my life at all because I've just been in lockdown for months. So why don't, Brother Dan, why don't you go next? How was your holidays?
Holidays were quiet. Both our children were home. Our daughter had been home with us for 10 months. Our son came home for a week. I didn't do anything when he was here. And because of everything, I didn't have to hang out with annoying relatives. I've got this brother who never stops talking. And so we didn't have to hang out this year. But no, we didn't, unfortunately, couldn't get together. But no, it's good, quiet. And yeah, that's good. I'll just pass it over to Harry then.
Hey, Christmas was quiet. We went out for dinner went over to a friend's house, and that was as far as our bubble extended. And yeah, our yoga instructor. And then New Year's Eve, we went to our cottage and spent it there. And otherwise, life is pretty much same day to day to day. So that's my exciting. How about I pass over to Vicky?
Yeah, so similar. The only thing I'll add is that I am so sick of skating and tobogganing. As like somebody who promotes like getting outside and the outdoors are great, and it's the only thing you can do is just go play outside now with like if you have small children, that I'm just like, I mean, I love it, but I'm also exhausted from having to toboggan every Saturday and Sunday of my life. But yeah, but no, otherwise it was fine. Just peachy. I'm gonna pass it to Lynn.
My Christmas, I guess, was good, quiet. We were able to do some family gathering, but smaller than normal. And then after Christmas, we went into Orange, so we're not going too far these days. We can only be with our household, so we can't go to visit grandchildren or any of that stuff. So, it is what it is. We're just living through it. Let me see who's next. Has Colleen spoken yet?
I have not. So my holidays, I did a lot of reading of novels, which was really nice. I've gotten really I'm trying not to online shop as a thing because that's not helpful, but I can request books from the library at any hour of the day and then go pick them up. I have to walk to the library and pick them up when they're ready, which is kind of like online shopping that also includes exercise and doesn't cost me money. So I'm going with that as my current, random indulgence. And so I'm reading a lot of novels and it's really nice. And they're completely fluffy and have nothing to do with anything because, I just got back to grant writing and COVID planning and all those kinds of things. So it's nice to read a romance type novel that is basically a Hallmark movie in words. So that's what I've been up to. We just started the tobogganing on Saturday. So I'm not tired of it yet. I'm excited to go do it again next Saturday. And I'll pass it to Steph.
Thanks. My holiday was good. It was weird because I've never not gone to my grandparents' house for Christmas. And so we stayed in Strathroy, which normally my whole family would be going to Ottawa. And my sister's working in Manitoba right now, so she also didn't come home. And that was really different. We like zoomed her in as we did all of our family gifts, and we had sent her gifts. So she took her turn on like the computer, but it was weird. And so it was weird, but it was fine. It was nice. It was quiet. But then I moved, so that was not quiet and extremely stressful. So I've moved back to Toronto, Harry, update. Yeah, which I'm really excited for because I feel like because I finished my master's, got in debt, went home, paid off my debt, and now I'm set. And I feel like I've earned, and then there was a pandemic, of course. And so I've like earned the ability to move back here. So I'm really excited. Yeah, setting up my new apartment and everything. Exciting. Yeah. Oh, I gotta pass it on. Jill.
Hi there. Holidays were pretty quiet, just like everyone else. Me and Ella had Christmas Day on our own. All my kids were elsewhere, which is a first for me. So I had a really lovely dinner with friends that are in my bubble and laughed harder than I had in most of 2020. So it was a nice way to end the year. And yeah, and then had a week with all the kids home and a vacation from work. So we had some fun with that too. So it was a good holiday. And I'll throw it to Robin.
Well, I'm in BC and we've been in a quasi lockdown since the beginning of December. And so very, very peaceful and quiet. The one thing that happened in December that has never happened before and will never happen again is we had our camp AGM because nobody had anywhere else to be or anything else to do, and it was on Zoom. And my 21-year-old son got elected to the board, which just thrilled me. So that was a little bit before Christmas, but that was pretty cool. And yeah, and then it was quiet, and we're just found out we're in the same holding pattern until beginning of February at the very least. So yeah, not too exciting around here. And I'll pass it to Sharon.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I was so mentally exhausted that the Christmas break was just sleeping and resting. I'm a school teacher, so it's quite exhausting because the kids know so much about COVID and they ask some pretty in-depth questions that it's challenging sometimes besides just trying to get schoolwork done. So anyways, I just spent the 2 weeks resting, and I'm now starting to have my sleepless nights thinking camp won't open again this summer. So sleep is not a friend of mine these days. So that's what's going on with me. And did you go?
I didn't, and I missed the question at the start. I apologize because I was a little bit late.
How was your Christmas break?
Oh, I had a good Christmas break. It was different here as well, but things in Nova Scotia right now are a little bit less severe, I think, than most of the country. So we were fortunate in that sense. So it was quiet, but it was good, and I was able to visit my brother and my parents. So definitely very lucky in that sense.
Great. I believe that is everybody who's gone, and that is awesome. Thank you, Janice, for quickly going at the end, even though you didn't know what you were being asked to do. That's awesome. To date, we don't have a huge agenda. We want to talk about a few things. So we do have a couple of people scheduled for, so next month, I was just looking at this. We have a speaker join us, Chris Reyes Dupin from Columbus, Ohio is joining us for a transplaning session, and Vicky arranged that. So that is that information and a link will be up on the schedule page. So we'll send out reminders as opposed to this month where I didn't do any reminders. And then we have, and Vicky, correct me if we have Carla joining us from the United Church Foundation, the Edge Network, about grant stuff, but that might be in April. Is this correct?
Yeah, April for Carla.
So it's
And then
April
March
for Carla.
I can't remember March. We got to figure that out.
I'm not sure that we have a March yet, but all of this information will be on the schedule page on the website. So if you've signed up for this meeting and you signed up for all of them, then you'll keep getting, right, it'll be in your calendar and you'll keep getting it. Our hope is to have group discussions some months and guest speakers other months. With the grant that we received in the fall, we are asking people to host the discussion months, and we'll pay you a small stipend of $100 to $150 for hosting and preparing for that. So if you're interested at all, you can feel free to get in touch. The big challenge we have is topics, because we did have a learning form filled out, a spreadsheet that Vicky had set up, and we have some topics. But I think right now, as Sharon had said, one of the big topics that comes to mind on my first day of 3 weeks back is summer camp going to be allowed to go ahead? Overnight summer camp, what we would call our traditional camp programming. And I'm not sure if anybody has any. I'm not saying anybody has any answers on this call, the 11 of us here, or 12 of us with Vicky's son. But I don't know that any of us have any answers to this, but I don't know what people are thinking. I can say, Sharon, the same way that you were just mentally exhausted, that's why I took 3 weeks to do nothing, right? Setting a vacation on my camp email and then just not responding, with the idea that you need to take a break and refresh and think about life and other things. But what are some people's thoughts on where we're at? Open and honest is fine. Go ahead, Lynn.
I guess on that note about overnight camping, last year we had decided in about, I don't know whether it was March, it was early on when we were in lockdown and all of that. And they talked about what daycares and schools would have to be. And we had decided we weren't going to operate, that we just couldn't imagine the work that it would take and all the time, the sanitization and that. And then if one person came in, our lawyer who's on the board said, like, you're dead in the water here, gang, and that. So we had decided we weren't. Now in June, our government did say overnight camping could go ahead, but we still decided we weren't going to do it. We've been trying to meet, but every time we were going to have a meeting, we've gone into Orange, and I've got some board members that don't do the technology thing, so I've got to figure that out now. But I guess what some of us have been talking about when we were is what has changed. Everybody was waiting for the vaccine and that, which is coming, but what we're all saying is kids can't have it at this point. So they're looking at adults being vaccinated and that, but neither one of the vaccines that have been approved, one is anybody 16 and under can't take it, and the other one I think is 18 and under. So I guess in some of our heads, and again, we haven't had a group thought, is that, like, is this summer going to be any different than last summer from that perspective? Like, there might not be as much around, but would we as a group at camp, if none of those kids have been vaccinated, what changes in what you'd have to do there? So I don't know. Some of us I know have said, like, we can't imagine opening again this summer, because I just don't know how you'd get through all of that. But it's not something I'll official. It's just a few members and I have talked at different times and going, really, from a kid's perspective, what's changed? And that's open and honest.
Go ahead, Colleen.
It's some hard discerning, but I'm happy to share where we're at with Minnesota. So we have opened both registration and hiring. We actually opened our hiring a little earlier this year because we know that our staff, when they're doing online courses, are feeling a little overworked online. So we wanted to give them some space when they weren't in school to think about applications, which has sort of worked, maybe not entirely. But registrations are, I don't know for other folks who have them open, but for us, registrations are only spottily coming in at this point, not anywhere near the numbers that we would have in previous years at this same juncture. So that's a challenge, but we figure that could change. We went with publicizing 3 scenarios. So our scenario A is overnight, and we're saying this is the one that we are doing our biggest planning for. I figure I plan for the hardest, scariest thing. So I plan for overnight as though every child has COVID-19. And then from there, we work to less frightening situations. And so right now I am planning as though we are having overnight with everyone infected and trying to keep people safe, or at least with a lot of people infected, and trying to keep the not infected ones uninfected still. But our scenario B, we've publicized, is moving to day camp, and our scenario C, we've publicized, is moving to virtual and or family camps. What we've done with that is we've said that we're going to automatically move you over if we change that scenario, and change your registration costs. Obviously, if people move from an overnight to a day camp scenario, we're not going to charge them for overnight. I wrote, I think, a 4-page letter to anyone to our applicants, which I am happy to share, that just outlines some possibilities and procedures that we are thinking about for this summer. Just to say, this is where our planning's at right now. This is some stuff that you want to have on your radar as you come into the summer. It includes things like, yes, you will have to wear masks. This is what cohorting might look like. This is how we might run some programs. And that sort of thing. I'm doing my best to make it as encouraging and hopeful a document as possible, because I don't want to scare our staff, but I want to be real with them. And it also includes things like what happens if we move to a different scenario and we don't need as many staff and that sort of thing. So that's where we're at, and I'm happy to share anything that we've done. Our COVID plans and possibilities letter is on our website. I also created a video where I read the whole thing in case people had trouble reading through a letter. They could then follow along. And I can link to that YouTube video if both people are interested in it. So that's us.
Thanks so much. That's a great update. Go ahead, Steph.
Harry might have mentioned it a while ago, but a while ago we made the call that we're not having camp this summer, just because we're in a different scenario in that, like, we're really international and national. Like, we have people flying to us, and we have just too many variables that are unknown at this point. And we don't have the ability, like, we don't own a site. We can't have a day camp because LGBT kids are everywhere. I mean, we probably could if there was enough marketing at only Sault Ste. Marie or something, but we're just not localized like that. So for us, we couldn't see how it was going to happen. So instead, we made the call pretty early, and we've just been working on ramping up our online. So we shifted to Rainbow Online Connection, which is totally different. And we're just ramping that up. So now we have time to organize the boxes that all the kids are going to get, and trying to, like, I do want to hire some, marketing staff and things like that. So we just have shifted where we're putting our energy, and making the call early can just make us go for it. My biggest anxiety, though, is if the world does get better and every other camp is able to run, and then we look like the one that didn't, and making that, it's a bit of a gamble. So that's what I'm anxious about. And then nobody will register because they're like, why would I do that? I can go to real camp now. So anyway, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's a fear. Other camps are going to make choices, and depends how fast you can turn some choices around. Who else? Anybody else want to share? Go ahead, Jill.
Oops, there we go. So we've opened registration for day camp only, kind of going with 3 scenarios as well. One is day camp only, one is day camp with partial capacity of overnight camp as well. So we're limiting day camp registration so that we can have hopefully both on site. Then we're also just saying like day camp with full overnight capacity as well, which would be like the ideal situation. But we've just opened registration for day camp only, saying that we're going to wait to see what happens with the OCA and the guidelines and the field guide before we offer overnight camp. So it'll be a month and a half before we decide on that. Registration's spotty, trickling in, and everyone who's registered or even applied for jobs are saying, but we will want to do overnight if that happens. We did receive funding from, we received a GROW grant from the United Church to take our First Nations programming kind of on the road. So on a side project, I have someone working on trying to find locations where we can, and staff to do a First Nations day camp on reserves in the area, and then also in the community as well. So just a smaller satellite program. That continues our Heritage Week program that we've done for the past few years. And yeah, we're just trying to diversify and think of as many different ideas as we can to get people on site, get the word out that the camp is trying new things. We're offering a space for outdoor wedding ceremonies. We're going to try and do some community programming. If we only have a day camp, we're going to do swimming lessons at night for the community, but rather than going to the Y or whatever, they can come to an outdoor pool and have swimming lessons and things like that. So we're trying a lot of different things this year, and hopefully some of them will take, and hopefully we'll be able to have a good number of campers participating as well.
That's great. Sounds like lots of interesting things. Would anybody else like to share? Go ahead, Robin.
I'm really, one nice thing that's happened from this pandemic. Well, first of all, my camp, we don't have any year-round staff, and we only have 5 paid staff in the summer, and they're all like cooks and maintenance people, and the lifeguard. And everybody else, every program person is volunteer. And so we struggle, we operate on $45,000 a year total, our total budget. So we struggle with all those sort of extras. And this year, the BC Camping Association, we can finally go to their meeting because it's online and we don't have to drive for 9 hours to get to the Lower Mainland where they're holding the event. So it's quite exciting, and I'm trying to get the other board members to commit to going, or at least a few of them, and just because I feel the BC government is very proactive in meeting with leadership and talking, and so our decision is we will do what the BC Camping Association recommends, be that overnight or day camp. So and knowing that they will be meeting with the government officials, because that seems to be the way the BC government has been operating. So they're meeting with church officials, they're meeting with all the different people. So I'm really looking forward to just being able to be there for the first time in decades. I think that because we don't have the budget to pay mileage, and to have someone give up their whole weekend, plus the 2 days of driving on either end. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I think our association is key.
Well, I think the pandemic's going to change that for lots of things, right? They'll no longer have an excuse to say they can't add a virtual part of a meeting like that, especially for camps that are in the middle of nowhere. This was always a challenge when we were at London Conference, and Camp McDougall was part of London Conference, but was nowhere near London Conference. And so they were always felt left out. But yeah. Anybody else want to share? Go ahead, Vicky.
I was just going to say that, so I'm in Saskatchewan, and I think it's interesting, Rob, what you said about the BC Camping Association, and I think that that's wise to wait for them. But I'm from a province that's the wild west of most things, but also especially COVID policy. And so it's we also decided, our board met last week, I guess, and decided to focus on day camps, with the idea sort of similar to you, Jill, that we might be able to do some overnight, but that we're going to focus on hiring and planning around day camps, because I think we're I don't know, our cases per capita are way higher than they should be. They're, as high as Ontario, even though it doesn't look as shocking, but we're a tiny province. So, and also our camping association has been really active in advocating as well. But our camp in Saskatchewan, there's essentially, I think, one camp that isn't a church camp, and the United Church camps that exist are far and away the most sort of progressive. The most camps are evangelical. So the base sort of conservative evangelicalism is both our government and also our camp government. And so I think there's a good chance that they might open things up in Saskatchewan for camping. Whether that's wise or not, I don't know. But it's just who's got the government's ear. So, but I think regardless, day camps is a good fit for us, and we did do them last year as well. So if anybody has any questions or whatever, I'm happy to share kind of our documents and stuff that we did last year if you're thinking about day camps. And I'll say it was the most financially awesome year we've ever had, because the government was paying 75% of our wages and day camps, at least in our province, the amount you pay and expect to pay for a day camp isn't a ton different than what you expect to pay for an overnight camp. But overnight camps cost so much. You need to hire cooks and have ratios and cabins and stuff. So anyways, if anybody ever has any questions about what our experience was, I'm happy to share. And I've also attended a few webinars and stuff about building day camp options, have a bunch of resources that way. So yeah.
Yes, Vicky, one of the things, and this is just it, we've talked, Vicky and I and Matt, and I believe we talked about it in December, the idea of a resource sharing site, somewhere where we can access some of these documents especially for COVID policy, but for any policy. And this isn't just a United Church of Canada thing. The OMC Council has talked about a resource sharing site for all of the OMC organizations and churches, so and church camps and conference centers. So that's amazing. An update from Pierce Williams. We are in that weird middle place because we are approved for quarantining migrant workers. We have 3 Jamaicans on site right now that arrived last week to start work on a farm when they're done quarantine. 5 were supposed to show up. 3 showed up. We still billed the farmer the $1,000 per head because it's the dead of winter and you can't open buildings for less than certain costs. And this is our struggle: is we can plan for things like day camp and overnight camp, and we have hiring and registration is open. We're not taking money from parents at this point in time unless they agree that if camp was canceled, that money transfers to donation. So meaning they don't get special privileges that way. It just means that we'll take their money if they check that box. But if they don't check that box, then there's no option for them to pay us at this moment in time. It just saves us from doing refunds in the future if something were to happen and we had to give it back. The one thing about being a quarantine facility or a migrant housing facility, because we've got approved to do farm worker housing as well, which is different than farm worker quarantine, is you can't do something else at the same time. So you can't have day camp on one part of the property and quarantine on another. The health unit just won't allow it. But I also saw that the health migrant workers are higher on the list apparently for vaccines in Ontario, and so that might be a moot point by the time they arrive. But I don't know. And as far as the same thing, registration is trickling in. We got funds to run a called leadership program, and so we've just a program we call the Called Leadership Program, which is an online teen program to help teens through the mental health challenges of the pandemic. And so our camp director, Lindsay, has created that program and is running it, and that'll run from registrations open now to the end of March. Or no, it's open now. The program will end by the end of March so that we can use those funds. And then, we're still in the woods. We're not out of the woods. We're still in the woods. We're still walking a path. I'm still not confident that everybody will stay employed for the long term because the federal government hasn't changed the ways that Hughes works. So you can't claim it if donations were up 1 month or right. So there's still a variety of challenges we have going forward. But I think in the end, last year will show up as a great year financially for the same reason, Vicki, that the majority of our staff wages were paid by the government, but it doesn't leave us in the best of places for long term. We're still going to have to fundraise starting again now. So that's where we're at. Anybody else have anything to share? It's all about how long you can hold the silence. If you want to share, feel free to break in, unmute your mic. I want to talk a little bit about the OMC survey, the Outdoor Ministries Connection Survey. I put in the chat, we had amazingly 33 camps fill it out so far, and that's just to December 21st. Now, they have extended, we got an email January 6th saying they're extending it until January 15th. So if your camp is not on that list, feel free to have someone fill it out. And hopefully we can get to 35. 35 was our goal, and maybe we're already at 35. I haven't emailed Jake to ask as the researcher. So, but that is an awesome number, and we've done great things. So Robin, if yours is in on the 31st, that would make 34 at least, and that would be great. At least we can hit one goal that we had for 2020. One goal, one thing went. And it's awesome. He actually gave us a call out in the in the email to the executive directors of the other associations, he said a big kudos to UC Canada for achieving a very solid response. I was like, great. He didn't call out anybody else. So, but of 55 camps, having 33 fill it out is huge. It's a great thing. And that data, just so that we're all aware, that data is not only compared for us, camp to camp, to give us a picture of who we are, but it'll be compared across Protestant, across those mainline denomination camps in North America, and gathered. It'll also be, compare our findings as OMC to the Foundation for Jewish Camps and the ACA camps that have also done a similar survey. So when you read when you get a big survey that's not just United Church of Canada, it'll sort of give us a picture of where your camp fits into a much larger context in North America. So that is the OMC. There is no, at this moment in time, the other information from the OMC is that there are no plans for an OMC gathering this year, like a meeting, because nobody can travel at this point. And who of us wants to go to the States right now? Apparently lots of politicians want to go to the States, but I have no interest in it. So we'll keep you informed moving forward. Did somebody, I see there's a conversation about Canada Summer Jobs going on. I'm not sure if anything needed to be added to that. We talked today at a meeting in our office about the idea of what jobs can you have staff do that aren't camp related if you don't run camp. So we've talked a lot about trail creation and maintenance and landscaping and horticulture and build projects if you can find money to do those things. Just things to get youth employed that your organization can allow. Yeah. Harry, go ahead.
So for the staff can talk on this too, but for the online stuff, for the virtual camp, like it takes 6 to 8 people for us to run it. So it's a great way to use some of the summer job stuff. So if you're doing online stuff, hire as many kids as you can.
Yeah, I also think that they introduced this part-time provision, which is awesome. So like I'm hoping we're going to test out having like a camper engagement person or something that would work really part-time in the spring before camp starts, and then possibly in the fall after camp ends or something. But I wrote that in the chat that I'm confused because even though there's like a 44-week window, they say the max is 23 weeks for any one position. So anyways, I'm not too sure.
Part-time, as I understand it, it has to be at least 12 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I'm in the past for Canada Summer Jobs, I've always applied for a ridiculous amount, like my entire staff. Never got it, never anywhere near. And this year I'm afraid they might give it to me, so I can't do it. Right? I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, there was camps in Saskatchewan that like typically get one, and they got 16 positions, and we're just like, and didn't run camp last year, and kind of were a bit overwhelmed with how many staff they had to hire. So
I got 16 last year, and I couldn't hire them. I didn't have things for them to do.
And that's where I'm thinking, like, I think that, Harry, we should apply for as many as we can, because I'm interested in fulfilling, like, because everything's happening online for us already. We can like get really specific expectations in place, like you're in charge of only social media. Boom, like here's your expectations, here's the training you're going to do. And then another person who's only doing marketing, only the website, like coding, if that's a thing they're interested, like just, or, you know, research, program development, outreach, like sponsorships, filling out grants. So like, I think that there are creative distanced ways to fill those positions that don't have to actually be on site, especially with like marketing and stuff. That's where I'm hoping to put it. Because like I said, if every other camp is running and ours isn't, we have to really explain why we're worth paying for. So that's where I'm thinking we should put a lot of our funds leading up to camp.
Yeah. And
Those
the
positions
reality
still
is,
cost, yeah. Sorry.
yeah, Canada Summer Jobs, we talked about the fact that it takes so much supervision time sometimes to supervise these staff that I was just going to build that in as another job in Canada Summer Jobs, right? That you're the supervisor of these other people, right? So that it doesn't take up the danger. What happened last summer is that our camp director was new to, well, it was new to everyone. And so we had 6 ladies here for our spring staff, and our camp director wanted to treat it like it was camp growth, right? Like you're planning, but it's not, because you're dealing with quarantine and other stuff. And so it gave us a big viewpoint to say it's not the same. Daily meetings aren't the same, right? You don't have to. And me, if for anybody who knows me, the emotional side of managing people isn't my big concern. I just hope you emotionally get it after I'm done, as opposed to like coach you through it. So don't get me wrong, I love my camp director. It's the supervision time that takes you away from other things you can do. And especially if you can have Canada Summer Jobs pay for your supervisor, this is awesome, because then you don't have to spend money elsewhere to do that. So anybody have, let's talk about topics for March and March and May right now. There's a poll feature. I'm just not sure how to use it.
You have to set up your poll kind of.
Yeah, not going to do it. The feedback that we got on the learning survey is that we gave a variety of topics: program innovation, event fundraising, governance and board support, hiring and personnel. Those are all ones that lots of people checked off. I'm just not sure what you would encourage. Tell me what you want to talk about. Or not even talk about. Tell me what you want to learn about, and we can find someone to do those learnings, to teach us those things. Go ahead. You don't need to raise your hand. Just unmute yourself and start talking.
I think social media and digital marketing, that's where we're focusing a lot anyways. And like, not just, oh yeah, we should do it, which is what my experience at camp, like conversations about this has been, and people just kind of share what they do, which is fine. But like, we do it, we all do it. So I want to, like, I'd be interested in having like somebody who's an expert in that field come and say, here's how you make effective content. Here's what works. Here's how you grow your channels for marketing purposes, or engagement with campers in a way that's like, so we can come up with like plans.
Yeah, on that note as well, Google, the Google Suite. Sorry, if you're through TechSoup and all that, you can't even talk. It comes for free, so you get Google Ads. And one of the things that we are spending money on right now is maximizing the free ads. And there's companies out there. I mean, we're paying a monthly fee for me to learn how to do it. There's got to be rather than paying this company, it'd be nice if we could have somebody work with us and show us how to set up effective ads. Google is a beast, and they constantly change how Google Ads works. But there's got to be other nonprofits, whether they're camps or whatever, using it and could share their expertise with us.
I've heard a lot of conversations happening recently around Black Lives Matter and people of color and working on equity in camp and that sort of thing. And I think it's great, but it's all been American. And if you look for consultants and that sort of thing, it is Americans. And I would be really interested on hearing this perspective in Canada. And I even have an idea. There's a woman named Jacqueline, what was her last name? I looked her up earlier today. Jacqueline Scott, I think. who is a PhD student in Toronto, who does work on Black folks and the outdoors and the adventure gap. And I don't know her at all. I have only just read about her and read some of her work, but it would be really great to hear from a Canadian perspective about these kinds of things.
Colleen, can we ask you to reach out to Jacqueline?
I'm
Find an
going to
email?
be reaching out to her anyway, because I
Yeah.
would like to talk to her for some of the stuff that we're working on, but
Yeah, reach out to her and ask her if she is at all able to do an online sort of 45-minute talk specifically to United Church of Canada summer camps people,
Okay.
and how we can be better proponents of BIPOC, and what that looks like in hiring, and what that looks like in our policies, and what that looks like in changing, because that is a one stat that it hits you in the face when you read our surveys. 100% of our camp directors are white.
Yeah.
50-50 male, female, 100% white. That filled the survey out. But yeah, Colleen, you can reach out to me once you've talked with Jacqueline, and we can talk, or before you talk to Jacqueline, we can talk about cost and
I would like
things
to
of
do that
nature.
before I talk to her. I'll
sure.
reach out to you about what our budget, what your budget would be, and that sort of thing.
If everybody in this room can know this, our budget is anywhere from $300 to $500 for a guest speaker for a 45-minute session. If they're American, the lower that rate is great. But that's sort of where we can go. Harry, my question to you about Google Ads, as someone who's tried to do it myself, it seems like it would be a multi-session teaching as opposed to a 45-minute. And
Yeah.
I don't know if the people in this room would be interested in us exploring that as a way to utilize the funds we have to help OMI camps, right? That to say, great, here's a 5-week session, five opportunities to spend an hour and a half with this person to teach us in a very small group setting. Would just from a nod of heads in the room, would that be something that might be of interest to camps, or you can find someone from one of your camps to do that? Because I know for people who are full-time employed somewhere else that's not camp, like a teacher or a minister, that can be difficult. But finding someone from at your camp who can take some of those learnings can sometimes be possible. I'm not saying always possible. That's great. Anybody else have topics they're interested in talking about or learning about?
I have a comment on the BIPOC kind of Black Lives Matter thing.
Yeah.
Something that we did. Oh, first of all, do you know what school that girl's doing her PhD at? I also happen to be doing my PhD in Toronto.
She's at the U of T. Okay. But I can give you more specifics than that once I've re-Googled her.
Okay, cool. Anyway, also, it would just be cool if she happened to be in my building or something, Anyway, but also, we have a pretty diverse staff, just in terms of because we also, diversity is something that's really important for Rainbow Camp, not only racially, but also, orientation-wise, and so that all of our kids have different role models to look up to for, that kind of feel or look like them, or understand them. So we put a lot of work into our diversity already, but we were we're not doing enough. And so we had a meeting, and what I kind of brought to it was, there's a Canadian actually who, I think she's a fashion designer in California or something now, but she invented or created this challenge, and a lot of big box store kind of industries have taken it on. It's called the 15% pledge. And so I've challenged my programmers and my staff to take on this 15% pledge, because she says that 15% of, designers or authors or whatever are Black. How come 15% of your content you're providing is not from these people or from the community or, diverse enough? So that's where the challenge is, whatever, we're not a retail store, but she's challenging them, 15% of your retail products on your shelves should be from either Black designers or Black authors or whatever it is you're selling. So I challenged, and that's the truth of it. Like, I have so many more books on my shelves, like by white camping people, than I don't even, so that's where it's a challenge to myself, is like, instead of reading yet another Jim Kane book, I'm going to look for, something more diverse, right? And so, or if you're, creating a game or playing a song, like, just be mindful and try to keep that balance of like, am I incorporating 15% of diversity in what I'm doing? That's something that we've been talking about anyway.
Steph, she is at the OISE in the Department of Social Justice Education at U of T.
And I'd be interested in faith formation.
I was going to say the same thing. I'd be interested in sharing how different people do faith formation at camp and what they do in relationship to that.
For those who have been in United Church Camping for a long time, on this call, I know Dan and I have had this discussion, and both of us have sat, I'm not sure anybody else has, on national committees at when the United Church used to pay us to travel there. But faith formation is done so differently. I think that's a great opportunity to do internally, right? Like, to have someone manage that and facilitate that call, because it runs the gamut. So that's a good one.
I wonder if Pamela Evans from the Pacific Mountain region would facilitate something like that. She does day camp faith formation herself. She's pretty passionate about, and she's a really good facilitator. So, and she probably wouldn't charge because she get paid by the region to do it.
Well, Robin, if you could reach out to her, and the dates, just so everybody's on the same page. I had that page open and now I don't. The dates that at this point, March, April, May is when, so March or May, and those dates are on the schedule page on the website.
May 8th May 10th and March 8th. Specific dates.
Correct. Yeah.
I had
and
an idea.
you can use it. Sorry, and Colleen, you can use those dates as well. March, May, and June. Any of those. April, we're just waiting. I've just asked Vicky tonight to confirm Carla after reading an email while we were on this call. I was like, just space with Carla and confirm that that's the date, because Carla was looking into it the last time we spoke. She was checking.
Would that be
Go
June
ahead.
14th?
June 14th. Yep. Vicky, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just for another topic, but I don't actually know if this is interesting to other camps, so whatever, but I'm going to say it out loud, is looking at engaging with families more. So, like, how do you connect parents and families or whatever family looks like to their campers experience? And we just feel like a lot of our families want to be campers again. And so we have like a family camp, but also even just to be able to like talk to their camper. I don't have like a solid idea on this, but just something that we've been batting around about how to better engage. And like, is there a way to like build community among camper parents? Is that something that's needed? For us, the reality is that these days, not so many of our families go to church. And so like camp is their church connection maybe. And so is there a way to also engage families in those conversations? And anyways, so I don't know if that's of interest to other camps, and I also don't, off the top of my head, of a great facilitator, but it's something we are working on, thinking about.
I think going forward, a lot of camps have realized that family-oriented programming is going to be key, and that's even before the pandemic. I know the YMCA has moved to that at some of their sites as their only programming. I think we have lots of great information. I just glanced at the time, and that's why I put my hand up to say, that's awesome. We have great information. I love the fact that you all showed up tonight, and I'll do a better job in the future of getting the reminders set up and out. as Sharon said early in her introduction, last year, if you were tired at the end of the year, I remember having a board meeting the Wednesday before I started vacation. I just said, I'm exhausted, mentally exhausted from just thinking about all of the what ifs and where we're going. And so I really encourage everybody to take the time, if you didn't over the holidays, to make sure you're caring for yourself, because it is not it's not an easy time. And at this moment in time, no answers are any clearer. And that's, I think, the frustrating thing for us, is that we had hoped 6 months ago that, things would have been clearer. And I've said this on the meeting before, I was in a board meeting early April, and I said, here's the best case scenario, here is the worst case scenario. Best case scenario would be May 1st, everything goes back to normal. That didn't happen. Worst case scenario, September 1st, we're back to normal. And one of my board members literally said, what's your 1 year scenario? And today in our management meeting with my full-time staff, we are still a few months away from that 1 year anniversary of in March. And so I'm not sure we're going to be any clearer at that moment in time. But yeah, we have friends who can help. Lynn, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say there was someone on this call, on one of the calls last year, and I can't remember who it was. I can almost visualize him, but not quite. And I remember him saying, you all should be looking, when you're doing your plans going forward, to plan that you'd be running camp and financially be making money in 2022. And you know what? I'm thinking he might not be so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us that just run summer camps, like we don't run all year, we just run our summer camp. And, when he said that, and again, I mentioned that at a board meeting, and we all talked about that. And like I said, with the way things are, I think he might not have been too wrong.
It's an excellent point. This meeting has been recorded, so if you know people who haven't been here and you think would enjoy this, I will get it up on Facebook over the next, or not Facebook, on YouTube over the next few days. I believe those can be found somewhere on our website, I think under resources, but if you have to look around for it, enjoy the website as we do. But I just want to say thanks, everybody, and we will see you in a month. So that would be February. Yeah.
Can I close us in prayer? Do we have anyone lined up to pray?
Colleen, you are lined up to pray.
Could we have, just before that, could we have the February date? Because I don't think I signed up for the story.
The February date is the 8th, I believe.
Okay.
I will confirm that in 1 second. I keep going away from the schedule page.
Yes, that's the date.
February 8th, it's transplaning, and I just put a description up tonight about what that session is, and we'll send an email out with a sign up for that as well, Lynn, so you can do that. Any other questions before Colleen closes us in prayer? Go ahead, Colleen.
All right. Before I pray, I'm just going to say I've been to a session with Chris, and he is phenomenal. So February 8th will be great. So when I like to pray, I just like to take a moment to center myself and just feel where I am in my body by putting my feet on the floor or as close as they will reach. And when we all have our feet on the floor, we're all connecting with the earth and therefore connecting with each other. We're on shared space, even if it doesn't feel that way. And I like to leave my hands open, both for what I will receive from God and my community and what I can give to God and my community. loving God, we are back at it. Many of us have taken some time to rest. Many of us have tried to recharge and had various levels of success. Many of us have tried to shut down our camp brain for a little bit of time and have had varying levels of success. But we're back at it now, God, and we are planning to plan. And it's hard. And we're struggling a little, but we're also hopeful. And we're here with each other because we hold on to that hope that we can do your ministry with these young people at this time. So God, hold us in your loving care. Keep that flame of hope alive for us. And hold us in your love until we see each other again. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.